Good morning, world. I'm Steve Rao, the host of Pod TV and Roku TV, and I greet you live today from the All America city of Morrisville in North Carolina, the eighth largest state in the United States of America, an All America city. And we welcome you from around the world for our talk and engaging discussion on global affairs, the war in Ukraine, the pandemic, and other issues that we need to talk about. Today, I will devote my monologue, which may go longer than usual, to address a terrible tragedy that occurred yesterday that I found out on my way to a council meeting. And we also want to remember that George Floyd, 2 years ago, was tragically killed after an 8-minute and 46-second chokehold, where he died at the hands of Derek Chauvin. We'll be talking about President Biden's recent executive order addressing laws for federal law enforcement and federal agencies. Now, here's my monologue. Yesterday, 19 young children were murdered in Uvalde, Texas. They were in elementary school, attending their last week of classes, when an 18-year-old gunman came through and shot them. Like any child in elementary school, they were probably thinking about what ice cream to have, what friends they were going to play with, what sports they may play, what vacations they were going to go to with their parents. And this morning, those parents wake up with an empty bed in the house, do not hear the sounds of their children's voices. I can't even imagine what that pain feels like. This young man also killed 2 adults, a teacher, and appears to have shot his own grandmother on his way to the school. Now, we're tired, as Steve Kerr said the other day, the coach of the Golden State Warriors, of moments of prayer and moments of silence and our thoughts and prayers, because we continue to see this rampage of gun violence. The list has gone pretty long. I've been keeping notes. I read an article in the New York Times today. I'm going to summarize: a rail yard in San Jose, California, a birthday party in Colorado Springs, a convenience store in Springfield, Missouri, a synagogue in Pittsburgh, churches in Springs, Texas, Charleston, South Carolina, a Walmart in El Paso, a FedEx warehouse in Indianapolis, a music festival in Las Vegas, massage parlors in the Atlanta area, a Waffle House in Nashville, a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida, and a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado, just to name some of the top ones over the last few years. There's about 35 individuals murdered in the United States every day. And when you add all of the gun tragedies, about 45,000 died last year. And the numbers could be higher as there were an increase in gun violence after COVID. Some of them have happened so often that we actually know the names: Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, Sandy Hook, Columbine, Oxford High School, Robb Elementary School, to name a few. What's happening to us? It's no longer surprising, it's just shocking. Well, today we want to talk about what we can do. Why is this going on in America? Well, part of the problem, in my opinion, is not just gun laws and gun control, but guns are getting in the wrong hands, and people with mental illness, people filled with so much hate, they have no value for the sanctity of life. The main reason probably is that there's just a sheer number of guns in this country, and the laws are just making it easier to obtain and use them. Let us hope that we reached a point where the tragedy that we see in these shootings will accelerate our debate on whether there should be meaningful change to address these issues in our laws. One thing is clear: after other shootings, the answer from our country and our leaders was no. Stop for a moment, put down your phone, think about what it would feel like to go home, to not see your child ever again. That's what 14 parents are feeling today. And as we get to prepare to honor those fallen soldiers on Memorial Day, we know we have Chris Greco on the show, a veteran. We know that they gave their lives so that this nation, as Lincoln said, could long endure. No union is perfect. But I always grew up believing that I lived in a nation where we wouldn't just be gunned down like this so senselessly. This is scary. Let's talk about it today. We pray for the families of this terrible tragedy. Let's make their lives worth something by coming together and trying to heal our nation. Today we have with us Mark Lee, Chris Greco. I did better as a season moderator. I almost broke down in tears, but I had to hold myself together. But gentlemen, a very tragic day today in the United States. The purpose of this show today for the first few minutes isn't to start pointing the finger and saying that's all the gun owners' fault. But there is a problem right now, and I think we need to really have an open and honest discussion of what is it going to take. How many deaths? 14 young children innocently murdered. I mean, innocent children just murdered by an 18-year-old. I don't know where to begin. So I'm going to start with Chris and then Mark and Nick and just give us your observations of, and then we're going to talk about George Floyd. But tell us your thoughts.
Let's go back. Let's go way back. Okay, let's go back to 1976.
Mark, your audio's
off.
Yeah, the audio's off a little bit.
But I'll jump in while he gets his audio fixed. Right. First of all, Steve, I predicted this several weeks ago. I don't know if you know that it was on the channel, so it's historic. I said, look, there's going to be mass shootings in the United States, and also wildfires going rampant in California. Data man Chris, as soon as he gets his audio fixed, will understand just looking at data and moving data forward. It was pretty easy to predict wildfires will take place, and they're going to be really horrible this year in the West, and murders are going to take place, which we're going to see right now in the United States. Because here's the problem.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah,
I'm taking the floor, as my wife said I should.
Go for it, man. Go.
Okay. So anyway, too bad. Okay. So the thing is, here's the formula for disaster. Number one, guns in the United States. We have really very poor gun laws. In other words, as Chris knows, you can go out and buy an AR-15, and I call it a weapon of mass destruction. Basically, anybody on the streets can buy it. In other words, if I'm having a bad day, which I did yesterday, as my board kicked me out. Well, they didn't really kick me out. They elected someone else. Then I go, well, I'm going to go down the street and buy an AR-15 because it make me feel more powerful. And then I'll go out and shoot it. And it shoots me. Cool. I'm excited. But I have another problem, not just the guns. I have a mental illness. I don't care if I kill my grandmother. Notice this person was obviously, again, a mentally ill patient. He kills his grandmother, runs around to school, and kills a bunch of 18 and he's 18 years old. Remember, I said that the hallmark of when schizophrenia is first discovered is usually between the ages of 18 and 22. Okay. And there were red flags again all over the place, but we don't have a comprehensive mental health system, and we do not have a comprehensive system that deals adequately in gun control. Okay. When you mix these two things together, what do you get? You get Sandy Hook. You get the person that was the other place where he killed a bunch of people. And you get this thing that happened yesterday. And you know what, Steve? You're going to see more of it. Okay? Because mental illness just doesn't disappear. And access to AR-15.
Nick, you're so right. Mental illness is part of the problem and everything, but it's also access. It is also a very powerful lobby, the NRA, that has got its hands on many politicians' pockets and everything else. You cannot explain to me. I've had this conversation with several friends. I've had it with acquaintances as well. I get that people want guns for self-defense, and definitely if you are in a country like where Sasha's original home is in, and you've got somebody that is overrunning you, you have every right to defend yourself with whatever weapons you can have and all of that. And I am perfectly for that. And I definitely know that people are afraid of different individuals coming into their house and things of that nature. But, there are certain types of weapons in my mind that it has no purpose other than for a military purpose and all of that. And we're allowing these because the NRA says that it's okay and everything to be out on the streets without any sort of regulations or anything of that nature. If you are a deer hunter or any other animal that you are trying to hunt for food, and maybe you're trying to hunt it for sport or something along those lines, please explain to me how much venison you are going to have. And yes, that is the name for deer if you are using an assault rifle to use it and everything. It has no purpose whatsoever. I saw a little rabbit yesterday, and I can tell you that an assault rifle on a rabbit, there is no meat left of that rabbit.
And I agree with you. I had a 44 semi-automatic, and those things are pretty cool because I literally chopped down trees and destroyed small animals with it.
Well, I'll give you an example of just what happened to me 2 days ago. I was at a yard sale, and there's a guy in North Carolina, so I'm right up here in Youngsville, right? And the guy has an open carry. I mean, he's carrying a Glock. I said, "Hey, hi, how you doing?" Fine. I said, "How you like that Glock?" He goes, "Oh, really nice." I said, "How many rounds does it carry?" He says 17 and one in the chamber.
Is it semi-automatic?
Yes. So I'm sitting back. So I'm sitting back going 17 and one. Now the guy has an open. I mean, he's openly carrying a weapon. I'm not going to piss him off, right? But I mean, it's like really 18 rounds. You need 18 rounds carrying around openly for what purpose? I do not understand that. Not in the well, I get it. It's like carrying around a pager back in the old days. I got a pager, but I mean, but the thing is, a pager you can't shoot people with. So I mean, the bottom line is that do people need AR-15s? I told you this before, guys. Look, I'm ex-military. I'm a Republican. I'm conservative. I get the gun stuff, but I'm telling you, if a person wants to say I'm a gun collector, you say, fine. Here's your AR-15 with concrete in the barrel. You can collect these all you want. You want to fire an AR-15? You go to a registered firing range that has AR-15s. You fire them, you give them back, and you move on.
So, Sasha, let's go to you, and we're going to talk about war in Ukraine in a few minutes. But it doesn't seem like Canada has these issues. Is it just simply that the United States just has a lot more guns and it's easier to get a gun? In Canada, we don't see these kinds of gun shootings or don't hear them out as often.
No, because it's much more complicated to have access to guns. You cannot just freely go out and buy. There are no semi-automatic rifles available. So this is so most Canadians may be just more practical people because what gain you get by going out and shooting 18 people? I mean, you'll get more money in the bank as a result, or like what's your gain really by doing that? So you must be really mentally ill to do it in the first place. Now, if you're considering in Ukraine, you have hundreds of thousands of Russian troops who are mentally ill, 100%, and they all have access to guns. Actually, they're encouraged, not just encouraged, but I should say, but they must have guns, and they must shoot. Like recent trial showed when the man was asked, "Why did you kill this innocent person?" He said, "I was told to shoot." So that's another example of mentally ill idiots killing innocent people.
Sasha, there are mass shootings in Canada. I can give you dates. I can give you number of people that have been killed. The last one was in 2017 at a mosque. I mean, yes, it happens. It probably does not happen in the same frequency as the United States, and I grant you that. But it does happen. It happens there. It happens everywhere. Mass shootings happen everywhere.
But Chris, I do have hold on a second. Chris, I got a question for you though, and I agree with you that it happens everywhere and all over the world and everything. But what is it about the United States that allows it to happen? I won't say more often, but that kind of coverage is more regular. Because, like I said, I agree that there are mass shootings all over the world. I don't care whether it's Africa,
it's
Asia, Europe, or whatever, but it
Right.
does seem to be very, the coverage seems to be much more prevalent here in the United States. The other thing that I will add to the United States picture is that there is a growing problem, and it's not just in the inner city. It is various parts of the community around gang violence, and some of those gangs are also getting access to these kind of weapons and all of that, and some of that is also another form of a mass shooting. It may not be as widely covered and everything, but if you're doing a drive-by shooting, I know there have been incidences in North Carolina where people have been of what would amount to friendly fire, because somebody is firing among these gang wars and things of that nature, and somebody, is sitting in their porch and they get killed because of that quote unquote friendly fire, kind of like what goes on in foreign wars, similar to what, not as atrocious as what is going on in the Ukraine and everything, but definitely friendly fire is taking place as well. And it's not just in big cities, it's in small cities, it's in rural areas, it's all over everything because of this accessibility thing. And definitely too many people have access to these kind of weapons in my mind.
I agree. Look, I spent 20 years in the military. One of the reasons was to, protect the freedoms that are afforded people in the United States. One of those freedoms is the ability to buy and maintain and have a weapon, and the thing is that that is such a precarious, that's such a precarious balance you have, because people should be allowed to go out and buy a weapon. But the problem is that there's no way to ascertain, as Nick would tell you, there's no way to ascertain their mental health at the point in time that they're buying those weapons. There's just no way that I can look. An individual can walk in and act perfectly normal. Oh, I just like this weapon for an AR-15. Oh yeah, I'm a collector. I'd like to try it. I'd like to do it. Blah blah blah. Whatever. And all of a sudden, oh yeah, sure. Let's take a look at your record. Nope, no arrests. They do a quick background. Yep, everything's good, looking good. But here you go. Here's your AR-15. Oh, here's a couple clips of ammo for free. Hey, thanks a lot. See you later. Where are you going? Oh, down the street to the elementary school.
You can literally buy stuff. I remember many years ago. It's probably a decade or so ago, but I imagine it's still taking place. And I want to say it was actually in your area, Steve, of West Virginia. But I was going with some friends of mine to actually, they were performers, and we were going to a performance in Ohio. We came back. They were meaning they had dreadlocks and everything, because it was a reggae African band and everything. And we literally stopped at a convenience store. They were having an auction. Literally, you could win a prize for something that was there. And I was actually managing this group. Do you know what that prize was? It was basically, I want to say it was like a sawed-off shotgun or something along those lines. It was definitely a shotgun, and it was like a raffle contest that you literally go buy a ticket and get it right there. And I can guarantee you that even though this was decades ago, there are probably still things like that going on in certain parts of our country right now, where you can literally buy a ticket and win a chance to get a gun and everything. I can tell you that I was managing that group at that time, and I can tell you that as soon as they got that gas, I said, let's get the heck out of Dodge, because I'm having had the beer then. It may not have been as great and everything, and they were a bunch of dreads. So do you think I was trying to stick around in that town?
So let's go to the next, that's Terry, Mark, amazing. So let's go to the next phase before we start talking about the George Floyd and President Biden's executive order. Then we're going to go into Ukraine. But what's the solution then? Time and time again, I listed all those gun shootings, talked about the schools.
There's got to be, Steve, there's got to be real, and there have been things that have been put on the table, including, I want to say, aspects of the Brady Bill and a number of other things, but there are certain things that make no sense. NRA, lay your hands down and everything. I get that y'all want people to have that right that is in the amendment and everything, but certain parts of that make no sense. So therefore, those parts need to be kind of like having some serious rules and enforcement of those rules, kind of along the lines of what Chris said and everything. Actually, Nick, you'll be glad to know this conversation actually came up on one of our shows yesterday. And by the way, Chris, they were having technical issues as well. But might be a StreamYard and a technical issue thing going on in the world. But on Interludes, Val, who is the host of that show, and Mr. Womble and Tony and everything, and I think Mr. Womble is a school teacher, if I remember everything, they were basically making a parallel between what is happening now and that's the show Interludes that airs here on the network. And the whole, and I hate to tell you this, Chris, but they did bring up Roe versus Wade because she is a woman, African-American woman, and she's basically like, so wait a minute, you want to tell, I don't remember if Val has any kids or not, but you want to tell me that that you want my kids to come into this world with, and come into this crazy world that exists and everything, but at the same time, and tell me what to do with my body, her words, not mine, and everything. But then you want to sit there and basically put them into this very harsh world with all of these crazy guns out there. So they didn't make a parallel between the Roe versus Wade fight and that of what is going on with our gun violence and all of that. And by the way, 54%, and this just came out in a new poll and everything, said that they disapprove of the Supreme Court following the Roe draft. So it looks like the majority of the folks are saying, hey, hold on a second, we're not sure that we like that whole draft that y'all have going on with Roe and everything.
Yeah, but Steve asked for a possible solution, and I would think you want to move toward our model that we have for automobiles. Okay,
there you go.
In other words, if you want to drive an automobile, exactly. You license
get a license.
You license it. You test them on an annual basis. Okay, and you control it through licensing and a testing procedure.
That's right.
Which right now does not exist in guns. For example, my 14-year-old grandkid, I can turn around and buy him an AR-15 or 47, whatever that gun is, AR-15, hand it over to him and say, hey, this is your birthday gift. Go out and shoot some birds with it somewhere. And then he goes crazy and starts shooting people because there's no control. There's no.
But you know that I can kill more people. I can kill more people with a computer than with a gun. I can kill an entire hospital wing with a computer. And we don't license that. We don't license computers. We don't make kids go out and take a test for that. We don't do anything about cybersecurity. We don't do anything about that. Yeah. Automobiles. I can kill more people with an automobile. I can run them down. I can get 20, 30, 40, 50 people with an automobile before it stops. And yet I'm licensed.
But Chris, hold on a second. I do have a question for you based on that and everything. And part of the problem that I think exists, and I am a fan, and I'm actually part of the other show that we have here as well, even though we're on hiatus temporarily. But the Gamers Den deals with the video game industry and things of that nature. And definitely, if you look at some of these video games, and I know my brother is a big fan of Call of Duty and some of the others, they are very military oriented, very violent oriented, and everything along those lines. And you talked about, and I have no kids, but I do have my 2 nephews and everything. Yeah. We can go buy them and people will say that it's just a simple toy, but you can go buy them an air gun. Those air guns can also have a little bit of force to them as well and everything. And that can sometimes lead into the harder weapons as well. So I think that there needs to be some conversations with a couple of industries. You have
a licensing procedure. You have insurance companies who insure you. Okay. And remember, the insurance companies are going to underwrite you. So they'll require the mental test to take and that you pass it every year, or they're not going to grant the insurance on that gun. So if Steve goes, I want to buy a Glock, for example. Okay. First of all, you got to get a license to own the gun. Then you have to get insurance policy to underwrite you, let's say for $1 million. And then you're going to have to take a mental test probably once a year to maintain your insurance coverage.
You have to pass a shooting test. You have to pass. That instructor takes a look at you.
Yeah, right. Because the thing is, some of these people I've had over, like I said, I told Chris, the only people who knew how to handle guns and weapons at my lake house was ex-military people. The people that were the yahoos had no clue. They'd sit there and point it at you like this. Oh, this is pretty cool.
Let's do a pivot to Sasha to talk about the war, but
I'm going to help you with that pivot because one of the things that I was surprised, and it actually shows leadership, world leadership and everything. But one of the things that I noticed today, and I was wondering if you were surprised about this because he's in the middle of his own war and everything, but definitely the Ukrainian president sent his condolences over for the awful shooting in Texas. And I thought that was actually some very effective leadership, that he was seeing what was going on in not just his own place where he's dealing with a horrible invasion and everything, but he also saw what was going on in Texas, and he actually took time out to send condolences over, quote unquote, the awful shooting in Texas. So I just wanted, do you think that this is an example of somebody actually showing true leadership?
Have you got any condolences from Mr. Putin?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Nice problem.
Actually,
That's a great line.
actually,
No
Keith,
condolences from Putin.
I was
He
thinking about your remark about the last mass shooting in Canada was in 2017, right?
Yeah.
And America, it goes like every 10, 15 days or so.
Oh, yeah.
So the big difference is this. In Canada, to wait for next mass shooting, you have to wait at least 5 years, maybe even 10 years in some cases. However, in US, situation is very dynamic, and I'm surprised that there are no sites that allow betting when the next mass shooting will take place. So the answer is 1 day, 5 days, 10 days, and 30 days. And of course, different bets and different probabilities, of course, on each one.
Don't be sure that there are those things
Number two bet would be who is a shooter? Is it a white person, a black person, or neither? Neither one. So different bets as well, different odds, and I think that side would do extremely well. And Canadians would flock to that site instead of waiting for 5-10 years until next mass shooting will happen in Canada.
Point
now,
taken.
do you think, real quickly before we go to the war in Ukraine, do you think politically these shootings are going to affect the general election? Because you have Ted Budd, his ad when he won the primary was, I had a rifle and a wall saying, "I'm for guns, I'm for Bibles, I'm for
gun shop owner."
But
is he a gun shop owner?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's a gun shop owner. The guy was.
Do you think?
But I mean,
people will come? Do you think people are so tired of the shootings that they're going to come on? Or do you think it's just
I'm
going to
not voting
galvanize?
for Ted Budd, Steve. I'm not voting for Ted Budd. He is a Trump endorsed person. Done. I'm not. I'll vote. I shouldn't even say this on the air. I would vote for a Democrat, and I mean that is just boom. Then an endorsed Trump endorsed Republican. Period. If you're Pence endorsed, I'm in. You're Trump endorsed, I'm out.
Different guy.
Yep. So real quickly,
speaking of which, I was just going to bring up you asked about Putin and what his views are and everything. An outgoing Philippine president actually sharply criticized Putin for the killing of those innocent civilians in Ukraine, saying that while the two of them have been tagged as killers, his exact quote, and this is the outgoing president, Rodrigo Duterte, says, "I kill criminals, I don't kill children and the elderly." And like Trump, he had actually at one point openly called Putin an idol and a friend, but he is now rebooking Putin and everything, and he's basically saying that he's not the kind of person that would be killing folks that are among the innocent, which is basically the children and the elderly.
Wow. Okay.
So Putin maybe has a point of killing children because he believes probably that most of them will become criminals when they will be grown up, and most of them will probably be enemies of Russia when they will grow up. So by eliminating them, he's essentially it's a prophylactics for having a lot of grown-ups, and some of them will get mentally ill. Most of them will not doing well financially. So so it's the same argument as for abortion, because abortion prevents a lot of people that would grown up that they cannot sustain themselves in life. Most of them will be mentally ill and probably will become mass killers, and so that's the same thing. The only thing is, except that what Putin is doing is a proactive abortion. Really, what is the only thing he's killing also people that already are born. So, in your opinion, in some opinions here in the panel, that when you're doing abortion, you're killing a life, you're killing something which is already there. But when the one maniac is killing tens of thousands of people, and it's not abortion case where you have to still prove whether it's a real life or maybe not. He's killing alive, real people, children, women, and so on. And a lot of you see right now is there's a huge movement, especially in Europe, about appeasement of Mr. Putin. Even Henry Kissinger, who you
he's
can't
99.
expect that bright thing from.
Is he 99?
He's 99 years old, man.
Wow.
Yeah, he's 98, exactly. So you can't expect a lot of
I
stuff
know.
going for him. But still, he has a
He
great
looks pretty
name.
good. I saw him on TV a couple weeks ago.
Hey, but Sasha, one of the things that I've been noticing, and I'd love to hear your take on this and everything, was I was actually up late night watching news and actually watching one of the movies about another tragedy that took place many decades ago and everything. I was actually watching a movie around the Medgar Evers case, and all along that line, actually it wasn't Medgar, it was Emmett Till's case, and it was dealing with Emmett Till's mom. And I was watching that because I actually have a Roku TV, so I was actually watching some of our programming as well, Nick as also. So I was actually being glad to see, able to see some of our programs like Barbara and others on that new Roku TV that's in my background and everything, even though folks can't see it right now. But that being said, that one of the Russian soldiers has, and I think there's a few of them, but they are starting to step back from this. As a matter of fact, I think there was a general recently, like maybe yesterday or something, that came out and said that he found this war to be very atrocious and that he had wanted to have nothing to do with it, and that he was basically putting and stepping back from Putin and everything along those lines. So it does seem that with what is going on in the Ukraine, that just like we did, Chris, with Vietnam, that some of the generals and some of the leadership in the Russian army are saying, hey, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this, and this is not what I wanted to do, and therefore I am backing off. And I forgot the general's name, but he did seem like he was up there in high power, and this was reported as recently as yesterday afternoon. It was in the news along with the
a Russian general is not going to obey the supreme commander and chief is in Russia? Are you serious, Mark?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I heard.
Well,
That there was
I'm sure it'll be shot.
let's shift to the war in Ukraine. Wall Street Journal yesterday, Sasha says about 4,600 civilians have died. Getting the war, about 3,000 Ukrainian soldiers. It's still a push for the East. Every day we see more bombings, more deaths, but no sign of any Russia winning, even being close to winning the war. But how long does this war attrition go on? I mean, does it go on for? We know that Zelensky is asking for more weapons, more assistance. We know that Sweden and Finland coming into NATO would help, but are we looking at another? Is this gonna go on another year, 6 months?
Let me make the situation very simple. Nick, probably it will be related to you, of course. Let's see if there is a lawsuit, and let's see, I'm suing somebody for $1 million plus costs. Okay, so the lawyers of my lawyer and the other side lawyers meet, and they're asking, so what exactly do you want? He says, well, we are willing to pay you, say, $100,000 and just settle all this issue. Each side pays its own expenses, and they understand what you're proposing. He says, I'm proposing $1 million plus cost. He says, yeah, but it's ridiculous. I'll never do that. Okay, I'll raise it. I'll pay you $150,000, and I'll give you 50% of cost. What do you want? I want $1 million plus cost. Okay, in this situation, Nick, how long these negotiations would go on, in your opinion?
It would break down pretty quickly because the parties are too far apart.
Well, probably 10 to 15 minutes is
right.
enough.
That's what I'm saying.
15 minutes if you speak really slowly, then it's 15 minutes. Probably it will be much faster. Now, in this situation where, okay, Ukrainians want one very simple thing. Get all the Russian armies out of Ukraine, period. The end of story. Okay, and now the scary thing is, though, that in spite of suggestions of Kissinger and other some experts in this field, the problem is that 82% of Ukrainians want exactly that. They want to fight until the bitter end. They're ready to fight for the next 15, 20 years, but they want to expel all Russian armies from Ukraine. Now, with Putin's situation, it's more difficult. He doesn't really spell out, first of all, what are his goals. He keeps changing them, depends on situation. And he is not making any peace proposals, meaningful peace proposal, actually any peace proposal for this reason. So that's why this peace process is dead as we speak. And if that's the case, then I don't understand how Mr. Kissinger and others who share his thoughts can seriously talk about appeasement of Putin, and also suggestions that Ukrainian has to cede some territory.
Yes.
How?
And that's a great segue into the next topic. And we're going to end with George Floyd and the 2-year anniversary and some of the things President Biden's proposing. But let's go into, we've been talking about Kissinger, and let's go back to the 70s when Kissinger was this advisor and Secretary of State to President Nixon, the policy towards Taiwan. So really you saw a shift, they call it policy of ambiguity, where they said we're going to deal with Taiwan, but we're still going to have Beijing be the main contact we have as we have a relationship with China. And they tried to have this period of detente, opening up the doors. Now you've got President Biden shifting that strategy, and everyone said it was a gap, but now they're saying it wasn't a gap. And the Wall Street Journal said that, he is really signaling a significant policy shift on Taiwan, where the president said that if China invaded Taiwan, they would respond with more force than we've responded with Ukraine. And a lot of people are scared. What does that mean? Does that mean that we're going to declare war on Taiwan? On China? But I'm going to start with Chris Greco, then go to Sasha, who are really more of our foreign policy experts on. Is this a shift in China, in your opinion, Chris, kind of a reaction to what Biden has observed with Ukraine by, playing it safe and not really doing as much? These dictators are going to come in and just invade.
Yeah, I just was looking at news this morning. I think it's morning or yesterday, where Biden was part of the Quad, the Quad, whatever it's called, India, Australia,
Japan,
U.S. and Japan.
US.
I guess it was.
Yeah, the Quad,
whatever it was, the four, and India said that they kind of panned. They said, "Well, we're not really discussing that," and I don't know. I just feel what's happening is that there's not going to be a war with China. I'll tell you something, Steve. We do not want a war with China, and I'll tell you why. We cannot win that war just by a war of attrition. We have a couple million, right? Maybe in the U.S. military. I just did a research on that. I mean, they got us 100-fold in the Chinese military. They'll throw people out there just to get killed. They won't care. So you just don't want to get into a war with China. You just don't, unless you can go in there and just nuke them, and just get rid of them. But you're not going to be able to do what you need to do to be able to have a war with China. So if they go into Taiwan, and I'll tell you, I predicted this. I said what they'll do is they'll siege Taiwan. They'll start to blockade the area around Taiwan. They'll start to cut their commercial airliners in and out. They'll basically starve them. And how do we break that blockade? The only way to break that blockade, the only way to break that blockade is to attack and challenge the Chinese Navy. And I'll tell you, that's war. That's war with China right there. So if we
Chris, I got a question. Chris, I got a question for you. How are we going to stop a war in China when I can guarantee you that, and I live in an apartment complex, that if I look around my house right now, I have probably got at least 3 or 4 things that have some sort of connection to China and everything, whether that's an appliance, whether that's a television, whether that's a number of other things. And that's just in an apartment complex. I can imagine what's in somebody that lives in a house or something along those lines. So it seems to me that they are very much ingrained in our economic system and all along those lines. So even
I guarantee you, Mark, that we're on StreamYard right now. I don't care if you're on StreamYard, Zoom, whatever else. The technology is Chinese. The technology we're doing right now is Chinese. I don't care whether it's Dell. I don't care whether it's Lenovo, IBM, whatever it is. It's made in China. So I mean, if they want to defeat us, all they have to do is say your Amazon package ain't going to come. But the bottom line on this whole thing, and Steve, I think that Biden, much as, like I said, I don't like this guy at all, but you just gotta say something. And if he says, look, militarily, we're going to defend Taiwan. I think he had no choice.
Sasha, let's shift to you real quick. So what would this shift mean to that part of the world, Ukraine and Russia? If, all of a sudden we say China. So, I mean, in my theory, China's watching very closely And if Putin were successful, when let's hope he's not, that they would say, look, it worked for him. I'm going to go in and I'm going to invade Taiwan. Now, if Putin loses or he's assassinated or taken out of power, then they may say, I may have my, or is the situation different? It might be easier for them to win a war against Taiwan, right? So how does this all play out in the grand scheme of things?
I don't think that China will go with all-out war against Taiwan. It's not in their interest. They should keep it as a potential possibility, but not executing it. And therefore, the question of what the U.S. is going to do in case of invasion, it's really for people, I don't know, to have a nice discussion over a cognac, but nothing more than that. It's not a reality, and I don't believe it will happen. However, situation in Ukraine and Russia, it is a reality. It is happening, and it's therefore much more important than situation between China and Taiwan, because that's a distant possibility. And Ukraine and Russia, it's a reality where thousands of people are being killed every day. So I'm surprised how you can even compare this situation to between China and Taiwan.
Yeah, I get. Well, it's important to. I'm just bringing it up as a form.
No, I hear what you're saying, yeah. But one of the things I would get ready to say, and I actually had this conversation with a gentleman yesterday, is that he is actually of the opinion, and I think you've even alluded to it, Sasha, a couple of times, but he does not think that it's going to come from Russia and the Ukraine, because he thinks that is definitely an atrocity, and I agree with him on that, but that it is pretty much in the European theater. He's actually of the opinion.
No,
and I can,
it's not true. It's not true. It's not
true. But he's of the opinion that we will have World War III, but the World War III will come out of not necessarily the European theater, but it might also come out of the Asian theater as well. As I recall the history, and like I said, I do not claim to be a historian, more of a journalist than a historian, but as I recall both World War I and World War II, their threats were, and some of the factors that created those two world wars were actually in both theaters. So there was stuff going on in the Asian theater, and of course there was stuff going on in around Germany and Russia and other parts in the European theater. So I would think that if we are heading toward World War III, and I hope we're not, but more and more people are thinking that this is a reality and that this could be something that happens in our lifetime and everything, that both factors could be playing a role and all of that. So what's your take on this, Chris? You're the military person. Are we heading to World War III?
No, absolutely not. We're not going to head to World War III. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to happen. And a lot of people are like, they are so freaking scared of this. And I'm, Sasha, Putin is not going to launch nuclear weapons, and we're not going to launch nuclear weapons, and China's not going to launch nuclear weapons. One is, why would China launch nuclear weapons against the United States? We're their customer. It'd be kind of like killing a person who owes you $50. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So that's not going to happen. Russia's not going to do it because Putin is a coward. He's not going to do it. He's just, and I'll tell you, the generals, if he even thinks about pressing the button, the generals who are already starting to question why they're there, they're going to take a gun, they're going to shoot him. So, I mean, that's enough of that. So he's not going to do it. The only people that I would say are these rogue states like Iran, if they get a nuclear weapon, it's like, they don't care. They'll fire one up there. North Korea will fire one up. They don't care. But but I think China would stop them from doing that. I think China would stop North Korea. So if World War III is not going to happen, Mark, you can relax. You can spend time with your nephews, do whatever, because it's not going to happen. The whole reason for this thing is
here's my response to you. Two things. My response to Mark. China is, if you'll take 5,000 years of China, it's an inward-looking civilization. They are not expansionists. They are just developing their own countries, their own people, and so on. So therefore, likelihood of and not only China, but many Buddhist countries and Asian civilizations are inward looking. So a likelihood of a third world war being generated and started in Asia are extremely remote, probably impossible. Now, on the other hand, in Europe, civilizations, or the nations, I would rather say, they were fighting for centuries, if not for thousands of years. Neighbors, and not necessarily neighbors, they were always fighting. And it's ingrained in their psyche, their history. And so there is no unusual thing that in World War I, World War II started in Europe, and World War III will start in Europe, obviously.
No,
The possible scenario, Chris, I'll tell you what is a real possible scenario. If Russian troops will not be able to get any meaningful advance in the next 2 to 3 months, in the meantime, Ukraine will get more and more weapons from the West. So essentially, Ukrainian army will be much stronger than the Russian army. And actually, they can even, if they won't do it, but if they want, they can already bombardment of Russian cities, especially close to the border. They can cross the border just as well on the Russian territory and fight there. Interestingly enough, what Mr. Kissinger is going to say if Ukrainian forces will cross the border and if Ukrainian forces will start sending missiles to Moscow.
We don't know.
I mean, we don't know. Missiles, they don't have those, but regular missiles. Okay, number 3. In this situation where Russian forces are being defeated, Putin will most likely not use a tactical nuclear weapons. Now, there's no mechanism of how that is being implemented, whether it's a red button or it's a brown button or there is no button. Nobody really knows how that works, but they will have to use it. And I think 75 to 80% that will happen. Now, NATO responded to that they will in 5 days, not in 6 days, but it's in 5 days, they will destroy all Russian forces on the Ukrainian territory, plus Black Sea fleet of all the ships, of Russian ships in the Black Sea. Now, and NATO will not use nuclear forces. They will do it with only conventional forces, but super strong and hyper missiles and all that stuff. So now, tell me what's happened in that scenario. What's the next step?
Before we end the show, just one last we didn't really talk about it much, but did want to bring attention that President Biden on 2 years of anniversary of George Floyd's death, we'll end the show talking about that, is offering an executive order, but they weren't able to pass the George Floyd Police Act. And so the compromise, I guess, is to change the use of force for federal law enforcement agencies like the FBI. Doesn't apply to local agencies, which I find to be very discouraging, local police, municipal police officers. And then, restrain chokeholds and those kinds of things. So I'll start with Mark Lee. Mark, is this a step in the right direction, or is an executive order not good as a law?
I mean, an executive order is a step in the right direction, but I mean, there still needs to be a lot more done in the way that we handle the bad cops, and that's pretty much what it is bad cops that are in the force and things of that nature. So we got to make a way that those are dealt with and treated and all of that. As I've said several times on the show, I actually have relatives and friends that are in the police force, so I'm not actually saying that we have to defund the police, but coming back to our conversation around the militarization of things that go on, I also don't think that it makes much sense for police forces, and there are some police forces in this country that have tanks and they have other kinds of military grade equipment and things along those lines. So when it comes to defunding the police, that's where I'm kind of going. I mean, yes, you might need certain kind of SWAT units and things of that nature, but I don't know that you need to have tanks and some of the other high caliber equipment that are out there and all along those lines. So I think that that's one of the things that needs to be addressed, in addition to those cops and police officers that might be not getting the kind of training. And some of that even comes back to where we are getting some of our police officers from, because some of them are coming from the military and they've already been trained as killers and trained in a certain kind of military lifestyle, and then you're sending them on to the streets without making sure that they have the mental preparedness to deal with what is going on when they come into the civilian world and all along those lines. So I think that there needs to be some more kind of training that is done to make sure that these police officers are actually adequately well trained and able to deal with all kinds of situations. I wish Kim was here, because I do know that quite a few of our police officers are also very much involved and have been for years, if not decades, in the whole issue of domestic violence. And they are sometimes even involved in domestic violence themselves and definitely don't know how to handle those kind of situations also. So I think that they need to be trained in dealing with that and dealing with some of the mental illness that goes on with our homeless populations around the country, and a couple of other things that I don't feel that they have adequate training in. But that is my take, and I'd love to hear Chris and others people's whether they agree with me or not.
Well, yeah. What you're saying is true, Mark. They need to learn how to de-escalate situations rather than escalate.
Yeah,
and most of them do a good job, but see, the real problem is like airplanes. You get some pilots who crash the plane, and obviously you got, overall they weed out these bad pilots, as Chris Greco.
Yeah, and you're only supposed to use force according to the new, and we're going to end with other events around the world. And under this executive order, force can only be used with no reasonable alternative existed.
Right, exactly. In other words, they got to learn how to de-escalate situations rather than escalate.
And maybe de-escalation training, bias training.
Right.
I know that the town of Apex has gone through a lot of changes in their police, but they've actually hired the guy in Ferguson, who I'm going to try to bring on the show, Jason Armstrong, who was the chief of police during the Ferguson, and now he's the chief of police in Apex. Sure. Yeah. I've made a lot of changes there. And speaking of guests, I'm working on bringing Don Waddell, general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes. Hopefully he'll be able to do it during the season. Although he may be too stressed to do an interview, so it might be postseason. But hopefully it'll be as Stanley Cup champions, although they're 2-2. So Game 5 will be tomorrow in Raleigh, and then I think there'll also be a game on Saturday or maybe Monday. So it'll be interesting to see.
But the thing is that de-escalation training, I think, is so important. In other words, the gun is the last resort, not the first thing that you pull, which is in the movies. The first thing that people do is they pull the gun out and they shoot people. And it's like, no, that's not what you do. That's the last.
Speaking of guns and everything, and I was actually talking to my one of my neighbors. Actually, talked to a couple of them yesterday, but talking to a couple of them, and one of them were coming back from the gym. They were, getting back in shape. I know that you're back in work environment, being worked from the office sometimes and all along those lines. And I was just wondering, and this is another issue that's going on in the world, where do you feel we are with the pandemic? And are you comfortable with people going back to gyms and starting to attend major weddings and going back into their offices and all along those lines? Because like I said, this is a young couple. They're 19 and 20, I believe. And they were literally coming back from our gym. I mean, it was a very late night. I think it was like around 11 o'clock. And part of the reason they probably going late was there wasn't as many people there.
What my wife told me this morning is that I'm not wearing a mask enough. I've just been going rogue. I did, just to give you perspective, I got a little overboard. Last Saturday, I had 9 events. I started at 7 and went to 8. And I wasn't masked. I was outside for most of them. And I feel like for me, the pandemic psychologically is over. But I'm very scared now because I'm finding out people are getting COVID. And, am I putting my parents in danger? So she's now saying that I need to wear a mask. I cannot stand wearing a mask. When I'm indoors, I feel very uncomfortable, very hot. And I just don't like wearing it for like 4 to 5 hours or 3 hours. So I just can't go back to, I mean, maybe I'm being selfish, but I was looking forward to a summer and a normal summer. Sasha, I don't know where it is in Canada. Chris, what your thoughts are, but, and Mark.
I'd say in Canada is all restrictions are gone. So some people still feel comfortable wearing masks. I have no problem with that. Most of the people don't wear any masks anymore. So this is really great news. And yeah, what I wanted to mention, I forgot that at 1 o'clock we have today a financial show where we have incredible experts in the field and investment. Nobody counsels that, even in times of COVID or war or anything. It's still a very important part of us, especially in a difficult market like there is now. And we help to navigate these matters and discuss that. However, I would like to mention we don't give individual advices. We just feel what the market doing now. I can discuss, for example, what I'm doing with my own portfolio or any stocks, and so the others as well. But that's
that makes a lot. No, that should be.
It's nothing but entertainment, really.
Yeah, that should be a great show. I'm trying to make it and check it out myself in the background and all along those lines. Hey, Chris, I do have a question for you because I know you're not a big fan of some of the far right people, but one of the far right people, we're talking about some of the Trump supporters, and then I'm going to take a point of privilege, if that's all right, with Nick and everything, and give a shout out to a very dear person to me for something from me yesterday and everything. But definitely, Marjorie Taylor Greene has apparently done well in her election, and of course, that means that we'll be hearing more of her kind of interesting thoughts, including one of her suggestions that a Jewish cabal used a space laser to start California's wildfires, when she's had some other very interesting things as well. So what do you think about this person? And apparently she's won the office and is going to be facing off against a Democratic challenger in the heavily Republican 14th congressional district. So it looks like she might be winning again. So we might have to deal with Marjorie Taylor Greene for another term in Congress.
Welcome to this. Welcome to this. Well, yeah, we got to close out in a minute, guys.
Go ahead.
Please.
Go ahead. Now, you go ahead. I have no comment to that. I just have none.
Yeah, we'll talk about the next show, the disruptive, turbulent nature of politics. Well, I'm going to begin my close
hold on one second. I was going to take a point of privilege just really quickly. I hope this is all right with you, Nick, and everything. But, you know, I am a big fan, and she is one of my idols and everything. I think I mentioned it to Chris and everything. She did serve on the Golden Leaf board and all of that, and definitely was their first president. I said board, but she was their first president, that being my mom, who also started the a radio station, a community radio station, and all of that. And she just celebrated yesterday her 80th birthday. So definitely wanted to give a big shout out to Valeria Lee, who is a statewide person and is actually known both internationally and nationally, but definitely nationally and all along those lines. So that was my point of privilege, was to give Valeria Lee a shout out to her birthday that was yesterday, and she did the magical number of 80 and all along those lines. And like I said, she was actually the first host, and I know that you've been involved with that, Steve, as well, of the Black Issues Forum. So she was one of the early hosts of that program on PBS. So that was my point of privilege that I was just taking, and all of
no problem. Happy birthday. And here's my final take. First of all, I did want to say a prayer to our Attorney General, Josh Stein, who surprisingly suffered from a mild stroke yesterday. Real shock to North Carolina. Apparently, he's going to be okay. I texted him this morning, and he texted me back with a love sign and a thumbs up. But we're praying for Attorney General Stein, a rising star in North Carolina, projected to be most likely the Democratic nominee to be our next governor. And a wonderful, wonderful job he's done as Attorney General. He was a state senator, very smart, Ivy League educated, looks a little bit like John F. Kennedy sometimes, and just a real leader in our state. My final take is this. So we pray for Josh Stein and the Stein family. My final take is that Martin Luther King Jr., the Reverend late Martin Luther King, had a quote, said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can. And hate cannot drive out hate, only love can." As we witnessed the recent tragedy in Texas, as 14 young students lost their lives, we can only pray that we have more light and more love in our country, and to work together to heal as a nation so that we can do everything we can to honor the freedom that our brave soldiers fought and died for us. No union is perfect. America's never has been. But we can make it more perfect every day by addressing these issues head on. On that note, I just want to say that as we look back to the death of George Floyd, Let us strive on to, as Lincoln said in his second inaugural, finish the work we are in, bind up and heal the nation's wounds, to care for he who bore the battle and his widow and orphan, and to do all that we can to achieve a just and lasting peace amongst ourselves and all nations. That's the word of the day, peace. Peace amongst ourselves and freedom. We can honor George Floyd by doing everything we can to live in a world where we treat everyone the same, that race and sexual orientation and gender play no part in how we treat someone, and that we're all equal under the law. We pray for his family as they continue to think about this man who existed and lost his life just after an 8-minute, 46-second chokehold. We hope we will never have to witness that kind of a tragic death on television ever again. From our family to yours, we wish you a safe time today, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow for another edition of Pod and Roku TV's World Edition. This is Steve Rao signing off on May 25th, 2022. Thank you.